Hello YouTube community. This video will be geared for newbies, beginners, and non-techie long-time users of Linux. Hopefully the techie long-time users already know this stuff. It might also be helpful for people considering switching from other operating systems to GNU Linux for the first time. Here's an overview of what I want to cover: free software that you can use to be productive, and how this relates to the kernel, the distributions, and the desktop. Here's a picture of how all these things relate to each other. So the major division is between the typical hardware and software. This video will not be about the hardware. As far as the software goes, the kernel is what interacts with the hardware. The shell interacts with the kernel and the desktop environment. Like three of the most popular ones are Cinnamon, Gnome, and Plasma. And then of course, on top of all that, you have your applications. And the way I look at things is most people, unless you happen to be a programmer like Linus Torvalds, you spend most of your time in the kernel and developing code for it. But many of us are not like that. Many of us use a computer because of the applications. So we use a word processor, or we use a video editing software, or we use a browser to surf the internet. So that's where most people spend their time being productive on the computer, in the applications. But in order to get to the applications, you need the things below that. You need the desktop, the shell, and the kernel. And so this video will describe how these things relate to each other and how to select your desktop. There are many videos describing Linux, its history, give technical advice, and describing how to either install Linux for the first time or to distro hop, which seems to be a favorite sport among many computer nerds. My personal opinion is that people don't select an operating system. Instead, an operating system is imposed on people, especially when buying new hardware. The vast majority of new computers come with one of two pre-installed operating systems, Mac OS or Microsoft Windows. There are a few sources which bundle computers with Linux, but they tend to be few isolated places on the internet, and there are none in my local area. And based on my random perusal, they tend to be expensive considering they're using free Linux software. So the question remains, if you want to be productive, for example with a free Office suite, what do you do? My solution is to select the free software first. For example, I use LibreOffice for word processing and spreadsheets, GIMP for image manipulation, Kdenlive for video editing, Firefox for internet browsing, Genie for text editing, etc. And since I like free software, I install these free programs on a computer running the free GNU Linux. My current version as of today, April 24th, 2022, is Linux Mint version 20.2. I know there's a newer version available, 20.3, but my philosophy is if it ain't broke, don't upgrade. But of course, I do use the update manager to get all the latest updates. Part of the rationale for this video is the number of videos on YouTube suggesting this or that latest distribution of Linux. My puny mind goes into overload and I just shut them out. The other issue is the number of videos suggesting this or that desktop. I never knew there were so many computer geeks who obsess over customizing color accents on their computer desktops. Just type Linux color accents in the search bar and you'll be amazed at the number of videos. But I digress. Recently I realized that even though distros come with a predefined desktop, one does not have to stick to this paradigm. One can select one distro and then install a different desktop, and then spend hours customizing the desktop to their needs. But I prefer to do productive work on my computer instead of spending hours customizing a distribution desktop combination. This process even has a special name. It's called ricing. So, working from the top down, I suggest the following flow. 1. Select your software so you can be productive. 2. select your favorite desktop. 3, select the distro that includes this desktop. So number 1, selecting your software. As I described above, some of the most productive software include, but not limited to, the following: LibreOffice for word processing, spreadsheets, and presentations, GIMP for image manipulation, Kdenlive for video editing, Firefox for internet browsing, Genie for text editing. There are many more, too many to list here, but whatever you need, you'll find for free on the internet. Actually, the best way to get the free software is by using the software manager that comes with your distribution. All Linux distributions come with this, and it's very easy to get whatever you want. And I like to think of it as a candy store where everything is free. Step 2, select your desktop environment. Here too, one has several options. I break them down into 3 major categories. The standard category include desktops such as Cinnamon, Mate, Plasma, Deepin, Gnome. The lightweight desktops, LXDE, LXQt, and Xfce. And there are also window managers for the terminal, for example, BSPWM, DWM, i3, JWM, and a few others. I have a spreadsheet summarizing some of the main aspects that make them unique. However, from the end user visual perspective point of view, the things to consider are: does it have a traditional start button and menu like in Windows, or does it have a dock like in the Mac OS? And for those who want to look under the hood, I also include some technical information like the programming language. I keep thinking that one of these days, maybe after I retire, I will poke around under the hood and contribute some code to improve the desktop or the widgets extensions. After the desktop, i.e. the look and feel, is settled, the next issue is which distribution. Once you select your preferred desktop, then you should select a distribution that comes bundled with that desktop. In my case, I like the old Windows Start menu, so I select the Cinnamon desktop. And it comes pre-installed with the Mint distribution. And also you can install Cinnamon on any distribution. I prefer Mint because I like their free and open source philosophy. And they are most closely aligned with the Debian project's ethos. The Debian team is responsible for the GNU and the GNU Linux name. For those who want to go a little deeper in the history, the first distribution combining the kernel and the free software was prepared and distributed by Slackware in 1992, second by OpenSUSE, and by Debian, which they first announced in August 1993 and released in 1996. Although Linux is mostly based on open and free software, Debian is the only one that is entirely based on open and free software. Although Debian has its own GNU Linux version that they distribute, many other more popular distributions use Debian as a basis to make their own flavor of Linux, like Ubuntu, Mint, Fedora, Arch, etc. There are hundreds. A complete list and their ranking based on downloads can be found at distrowatch.com. There are so many distributions, it might be hard for a newbie to select one. The 3 ultimate sources for all distros are Slackware, Debian, and Red Hat. Here's a breakdown of a few categories as I see them. Bleeding edge. These are also known as rolling distributions. They update to the latest software almost on a daily basis. So if you want the latest, this is for you, but be aware that new mods can break old things that used to work. Examples include Arch, Manjaro, EndeavourOS, Garuda, Gentoo. The next category are the stable distributions. These are stable versions of the Linux kernel and software that run without any issues. Examples include Debian, Ubuntu, Mint, Fedora, Kubuntu, Pop! OS, Slackware, Zorin. Third category of distributions is designed specifically for older hardware. Most modern distros only have 64-bit versions, but if you have older hardware, 32-bit, this will be your category. Examples of distros are MX Linux and Debian 386. There are a few distros geared for privacy and complete internet anonymity. Examples include Tails and Scepter. There are a few distros specifically designed for gaming. As the name suggests, these are distros geared for playing computer games, and they come pre-installed with the usual software required to play games. For me personally, I stay with option B, stable. But in any case, I'm sure that all distributions, once they're installed properly, will work without any issues and allow the user to be productive with their computer. And if you do have any issues, most distros have a community where they provide free support. Now, in order to round out this discussion, I want to end with the Linux kernel and the whole concept of free software. So as most people might know, GNU Linux has two starts. The GNU portion started in the early 1980s by Richard Stallman. This group was focused on writing their own free software, but they did not have the kernel. The kernel that was adopted came from Linus Torvalds in the early 1990s. So there you have it, my suggestions for those considering switching to the world of free software. Enjoy.